So because y'all are so evil, you asked me to watch Snow White, I decided to do that so I could leave it a review. I literally just finished watching it, and let me say, it was freaking cursed. First of all, it was so boring, like mind-numbingly boring, and I'm genuinely glad that I didn't spend a single cent on it, and thank God that I have the super extraordinary power of bending time so that things move faster, but even so, that wasn't enough. Now, there were a lot of things that missed the mark in this movie, like the plot and the pacing, and pretty much any ounce of soul. And most of what I'm gonna focus on is what really rubbed me the wrong way, which is Snow White herself, because yuck. She is not a likable character at all. It could just be the precedent that Rachel Zegler set with how she marketed this movie that is possibly one of the reasons why it seems to be rubbing off. But that's not completely true, because I've watched the Hunger Games movie that Rachel Zegler was in even after she was being the most disgusting person, and I enjoyed her character in that. Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, featured Rachel Zegler in this as well, playing pretty much almost the same role where she sings. However, it was actually much easier to separate this character from the actual celebrity in this movie, and I actually did like her character. Don't remember what her name is, but I liked her character in this, even though Rachel Zegler herself, IRL, is not a likable person. So I know that's not the case, and it's just that Snow White was just that bad. The Snow White character in this had zero charm, zero warmth, and innocence that made the original character feel like someone that you'd root for.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
This version of Snow White comes off as really smug, like kind of condescending. She acts like everyone around her is kind of beneath her, but in the faux humble type of way. And one of the things that I did not like about this movie was her whole hypocrisy in the kingdom dynamic. Now, this could have been because the way her parents raised her, and she's marrying what she saw. But this whole bounty belongs to everyone that tend to land stuff is kind of hypocritical in its messaging, because at the beginning of the movie and then throughout the movie, you can see that her parents live in a castle and they run the kingdom, and they clearly live in luxury. All they did was give out apple pies. Otherwise, they're in charge of everyone else and clearly have way more than they do. Last time I checked, I don't see anybody else in this movie walking around that have big castles or royal treatment. So exactly how is everything shared? At the end, she's like, this is my father's house. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, house? House? Bitch, it's a whole ass castle. What are you talking about? I mean, I know it's her house, but like all the other people in the background, they live in like these little cottages and whatnot. And she has a gigantic castle that has its own freaking borough. But yet everything is equal. Everyone's fine. Her parents have this beautiful courthouse in the castle. I mean, Snow White benefits from this unequal system she pretends to speak out against. And her presence and family legacy completely contradict the message of fairness and equality. The next issue I had was her invasion in the dwarf space. Okay, it's just like the original movie where she comes in, but she basically breaks into their house. They come in, she's sleeping in their beds, she tells them the story, and they offer to put her up and take care of her. You would think that since she supposedly spent her childhood doing chores and cleaning the castle, that she'd be down to help out and work for them, right? Or help them, at least work alongside them. Nope. Instead, she womansplains everything to them, and the only time you ever see her touch the broom was to take it up and tell them what they were supposed to do with it and then give it to them. Goodness gracious, I don't know how someone sat in the production room and thought that this was progressive by making this woman look like a freaking lazy bum who was super entitled and would rather make everybody else around her work for her rather than to be humble and help. You work your ass off for the queen, your stepmom, but you won't do it for the people who are putting you up and that saved your life and are putting themselves in direct danger by housing you? No? The dwarves are cursed. They're likable, but they're so freaking cursed that I feel like after having watched this movie, I'd rather not think about them ever again. But the one that gets interesting screen time is Dopey. Uncanny as hell. But then, I don't know why I was surprised to see this, but they turned Dopey into this very sad, misunderstood character who doesn't speak because the others supposedly won't listen to him. And just because he's called Dopey doesn't mean he's a dope. He must be a victim of some emotional oppression, and it's more of a commentary about others silencing him, and rather than him actually having an issue with speaking. Like, are we really doing this? They had to make this a thing, and it was so freaking cringe. Now it's like he was being bullied by the other dwarfs, and this film feels like it's trying so hard in some instances to be deep when it really isn't. Anyway, she gives them a broom and starts teaching them. First of all, she tells Dopey that, you know, when she's feeling sad and whatnot, she would whistle, and it's like her heart singing. And she teaches him how to whistle, and he learns immediately, which is crazy to me. Why would dwarves not know how to whistle? Anyway, then she starts teaching them how to clean their own house. Look how she looks like a fucking idiot. You guys are cleaning. I'm sorry, that was really cringy. I understand, but you should have seen the movie. That was worse than whatever the hell that was I just did. Anyway, her dumbass starts teaching them how to clean their house, like I said. But the house was already fine when she first entered it. The only reason it got messy is because they started fighting each other. And then she's there lecturing them how to clean and acting and coming off like a condescending parent. You really think, okay, you know, maybe it's just the clips that we saw on Twitter where she's not helping them. She's eventually gonna help. Nope. The entire song is her just telling them what to do, dancing around while they work, and she's just supervising them. Meanwhile, she's staying in their house, shitting in their toilets or under their grass or whatever it is that they use for the bathroom, eating their food and doing jack shit. And she's bigger than them, so she probably eats more. Maybe they eat more because they work harder than she does, so who knows? And then at the end, she has the nerve to say, you know, this was happy and everything like this every day was like this when my mom and dad were alive. I mean, who says? Like, they were happy and they were singing while they were working before you came along. So I don't really understand why her presence actually makes any difference in their lives. So that part of the dialogue was really weird. But honestly, I interpreted her saying that as it meaning, that her family made people do all the work and expected them to be happy about it while her family watched. All they had to do was grace the peasants with their royal presence while everyone else around broke their backs. But sure, everything belongs to everybody, except Snow White and her family, of course, because they have most of it and they just pretend to be the people's friends while clinging to their power. I didn't see Snow White give up her castle to house all those people at the end of the movie, by the way. Seriously, the fact that someone wrote this and thought they were being progressive is insane to me, unless this was secretly a message about how toxic socialism or communism can be. It preaches equality, but royalty still enjoys the privileges watching everybody else as they work, and they just serve those people at the bottom to entertain the people at the top, because it's exactly the energy that Snow White gives off in this movie. An elite pretending to be down to earth while reaping all the benefits and everybody working for her amusement. It's almost satire, except that you know it really isn't. Also, the prince apparently he's like a bandit now, and I'm sorry, the prince was so forgettable. Or whoever the frick he is, thief instead of bandit, instead of noble, whatever, it doesn't matter. What is his name again? Jonathan. Yes. Why was he even in this? His whole existence and all of his band of merry men or whatever the hell is going on. It's like he's Robin Hood and all these other people are his merry men, but they weren't needed because you don't even focus on them. They were the stupid, magical, whimsical people that they were going to have instead of the dwarves, and they still kept them anyway. And they don't need to be there because they literally serve no freaking purpose. I remember the dwarf guy, and that's basically it. The others, I don't even know their names. They're just there as to be bodies. Notice how they don't really feature them in the trailers, by the way. You don't really see the bandits at all. But anyway, the other thing with Snow White that I did not like is she didn't carry herself like a princess. She carried herself like some slummy person wearing a costume, pretending to be a princess, and it really shows. She comes off as like she's cosplaying as one, but very badly. And it's weird because in the Hunger Games movie this actress starred in, she felt more like a princess in that movie than she did in this one. Maybe that's the director's fault, or maybe that's just her ugliness shining through after it's like sat to fester for a while. But there was no elegance, there was no grace, there's no poise, there's just this weird clunky energy bleeding through every line, through every movement. The regal energy just isn't there. It feels like cosplay with entitlement. And then Rachel Zegler would just make these weird ass faces throughout the movie that make her look so stupid. It was so nauseating and distracting. Like, what is this? She's looking at Andrew and she's realizing, oh wow, Andrew's character, Jonathan. She's like, oh wow, I do like him, which came on very fast to the point where it actually made more sense with the old Snow White movie that the prince came up and talked to her and she had a crush on him, them trying to flesh it out when there was no time, or if they didn't have any passion behind it, just make it wham bam, you guys are in love now, but like it seems forced. It just felt like they rushed it to all hell. It would have been better if they had left it more vague like they did in the old movie. I mean, that was an animation, so it fit, especially for the time, but this just came off really weird. And she realizes that she loves him and she makes this face. I don't know what it is with the costume designing or the lighting. It's not that Rachel Zegler's an ugly person. I mean, the inside of her kind of shows outwards, but they made her look fucking ugly in this movie. I don't know. The same thing with Halle Bailey in The Little Mermaid. She's a beautiful woman. And in The Little Mermaid, they made her look like a scummy shit at the bottom of a horse's shoes. I don't know what this fucking face was. It used to be a time where if actresses were on TV or actors, you would have to put them in the best light possible. They look at a shot and they say, ooh, okay, that face is not it. Like when you take a selfie and it comes out wrong, you're like, ooh, I thought I was cute, but oh fuck, nope, gotta do that again. This is one of those cases where they should have done this again. What the hell is even this? It doesn't even look like her. It looks like a dude trying to cosplay as her. What was this freaking shot? And you may think that it was one of those, oh, you blink and you miss it situation. No, her face literally morphs into this. And that's how she's looking at someone that she realizes that she's in love with. Bitch, if you cannot act the part to actually make a face to make you look like you're in love with someone, this is telling me that you don't like men and you're not a good enough actress to pretend like you do. Which is weird because like I said, in the movie she was one of them before, she had no problem with that. So I don't know what the hell was going on here. But have you ever made like a face in the mirror at yourself? Okay, maybe this is just me because I'm crazy, but like sometimes I'd make stupid faces in the mirror and then like slap myself because of how fucking stupid they look. Like I literally fucking hit myself. Like it's just like, ooh, I know it sounds freaking insane saying it, but if you've been there, if anyone, okay, maybe nobody does, but whatever. I'm just saying that there's certain faces that you can even make yourself that just evoke this primal sense of freaking irritation within you that it warrants a slap or a boot to the face. And this is one of those faces. I'm being so legit right now. My favorite parts of the movie is when they featured the evil queen because she was the only thing in this movie that was decent to look at. And I mean that because this is mostly what we're working with. This movie costs how much now? Everything looks like they got it off of Temu or a discount store. And also, the songs happen way too often. So they have the bandits and the prince, which are so unnecessary. And it makes the movie feel really freaking cluttered. But the whole part with all those people, like they're all partying together and they meet the dwarves meet the bandits, and we don't know half the bandits' names. We don't even know any of their names, as a matter of fact. I don't know any of their names, except for Jonathan, who's the leader. It felt very unnecessary. Also, the part where the evil queen disguises herself as the old hag and goes to give Snow White the apple, the birds and the animals are literally right there and they see what's about to happen and they waste time. Instead of going and creating a distraction or something, they go and get the dwarves. And you may think, okay, maybe they're afraid of the queen, so that's why they don't want to do it. But then why bring the dwarves in the first place? What the frick are they supposed to do about this? Anyway, after all of that, the queen then asks the mirror, who's the fairest, who's the fairest of them all, and the mirror's like, oh, you are now. But how is that possible if they're going off of not just beauty, but like how just you are? Because Snow White is definitely not more beautiful than Gal Gadot's character. So they're making it seem as though the person's fair and kind, but clearly the queen is the least of that. So you mean in the entirety of the kingdom, of all the people, amongst all the people that exist in this realm, the queen is the fairest? Not in beauty, but in kindness? That makes no freaking sense. Honestly, the funniest part of the movie for me is when Snow White dropped dead. The character actually looks better asleep. Maybe I'm just being mean, but it was just freaking hilarious me watching all the animals crying, knowing that none of the audience watching this was crying. Because no one freaking cares about this character. Okay, so in the original, the animals were just as stupid. They chose to waste time instead of actually doing something themselves. The birds can freaking fly. And the animals are the friends of Snow White as well, and they're smart enough to know that she's in danger. You could have done something, dumbasses. Anyway. Ew. Is freaking dude on some narcotics or something? Like, what the hell's going on here? So they get on the animals like they did in the original, and this actually hits harder in the old Snow White because the old Snow White was so innocent and so cute, and she was genuinely nice to the lady. It's not a lady, it's a hag, but you know what I mean. And the modern Snow White was already skeptical from the jump.
Well, there is someone.
I thought so. Old Granny knows a young girl's heart.
I wish.
That's it, go on.
bitch ass animals. You could have done something. You're the whole stampede of people. Oh my God. Wow. I'm sorry I'm laughing. All the birds and the rabbits and the raccoons and the host of the forest's animals, they're all heading towards the area. I understand that the doe or the deer had gone back to get the dwarf, but all the animals couldn't have stayed there and created a distraction if you knew that Snow White was gonna freaking die, you dumbass freaking things.
And then he will carry me away to his castle, where we will live happily ever after.
Fine, fine. Now get right. Don't let the wish grow cold.
Oh, I feel strange.
Our breath will still. Our blood congeal.
Real talk though, this scene seems sus as hell. Oh my God. Ew. 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 That's how you know you've been on the internet a little bit too long, because all I'm thinking is, like...
Blood congeal.
Okay. What in the world? Interesting. Anyway, what was my point? Yeah, all that aside, I felt really bad for Snow White in this because she was innocent and lovable and caring and innocent. I know I said innocent already, but there is truly a sense of loss when she dies. And so it's more like a lamb that has been slaughtered. But in the live action movie, the only feeling I had toward this was... Another one bites the dust. Then, the prince is captured, and he said he didn't know bravery until he met Snow White. So he and the hunter that set her free and didn't kill her decide to work together because Snow White gave him motivation and blah, 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 and he knows how to be brave, which is weird because when he's introduced in the beginning of the movie, he was brave enough to try and steal for the people in the beginning and fight for them, following her father, still loyal to her dad and whatever. So he feels more like the hero in the story than she does, even though he's very forgettable. Do with that what you will. So he does kiss her, which is funny to me. And she wakes up and kisses him back. And she's like, it's time to lead and not be led. Oh, and while she's doing her inspiring speech, all of a sudden Dopey can talk now because Snow White gave him the courage to freaking speak. So are we supposed to gather from that the other dwarves were somehow toxic? Ew, freaking nasty, bro. So anyway, and every freaking minute they break into song. Like, I know these are supposed to be based on Disney movies or like musicals and stuff, but every freaking 5 seconds, okay, that's a little bit exaggerating, but it felt like every time you take a breath, someone says a few lines and whatever, and then they start breaking into song. It's a little excessive. So the people see her, they're like, oh my God, it's the princess. She's here. Ew, look at this freaking face, bro. Ugh. Why do they keep making her look like this? It's like they put a filter on her to make her look worse. And this woman over here looks like one of the dwarves. She looks CGI as hell and not in a good way. She comes up. They just started singing before. She sees the people. They all start singing again. It's like they can't go 2 steps without breaking into song. It was so annoying. Anyway, Snow White meets the queen and she says, this is my father's house. And she knows now that the queen had tricked her and killed the father. And the part that really got me is the queen knows magic. Throughout the entirety of the movie, we see her turning things into things. Like she's like Adam Eve. She can make things out of freaking thin air. But somehow when she makes the dagger and then one of the guys from the bandits thing, the actual dwarf of the group, shoots it out of her hand. He's like, I know how to use a crossbow now. Like, we're supposed to care. We don't know you. Who cares? The queen gets the knife knocked out of her hand. And it's like at that moment, it knocks out all the remaining brain cells that she has as well. So she forgets that she can use magic. And all she does is she tells the guards, grab her. Because the queen is saying, you need to know how to fight. You can't just be a rose and be delicate. Try and kill me. So when that doesn't happen and she tries to kill Snow White, it doesn't work. I was expecting her to have like a lot more magic or whatever. You're supposed to be making things better, But anyway, you want to know how she defeats the queen? She refuses to kill the queen. She just says, run away and never return, like Simba. And the queen tries to kill her. So the queen says, yeah, to the guards, kill her. So the guards are holding Snow White. And as the guard is about to kill her, he doesn't want to, but as he's about to, she calls out his name. And she says, your wife, remember? She did this, and I remember you, and you, Alex, and you, Bob, and you, this person. I remember all of you. And then all the guards turn to the queen, and they say, I remember too.
I remember.
And so because of this, because she remembers them, and they get all like, we're not gonna do what you say, queen, even though we've been doing it for years now, because, you know, other people remembered us. But she was working at the castle this whole time, so she just now remembered them, just now remembered their names, and that's what it takes for them to not kill her. And the queen decides to be like, oh no, this is terrible. Instead of using my magic to turn all of these people into objects like I have the power to do, let me run up to my freaking room. Cause I gotta find out who's the fairest. Well, Snow White's the fairest now, cause beauty's only skin deep. You're just now figuring that out, mirror. So she smashes the mirror and she gets sucked in by the mirror because okay. And then they have what people would describe as a Diddy party to celebrate her being queen because honestly, I don't see her sharing her castle with everybody. I don't see her giving them room and board. She still has a castle. To be honest, I feel like it would have been a more interesting story if there was a romance between her and Dopey. At least that would have been unique. But this movie felt like a colossal waste of time and money and potential. It felt grossly unnecessary. It was extremely forgettable. I did legitimately try to give it a chance. The good part of it, at least initially, as I thought, was that the prince got a little, he's not the prince, but you know what I mean? Got a little bit more of screen time, but that actually backfired because now, because of the way they executed and everything, or failed to execute it, I think it would have been better if he had not been on screen. Furthermore, it would have been better if she was not on screen either, and the only part I liked about this was Gal Gadot, and the song that Gal Gadot sang. Other than that, this movie was terrible. It wasn't just a terrible Disney movie, it's one of the worst movies I've seen. This is, in my opinion, on par with those Asylum movies, just with a shinier skin. I don't give any credence to Rotten Tomatoes, except to see where the critics are because, you know, the critics freaking lie and this whole website lies, to be honest. So I don't even look at it for the audience stuff when I saw that with the Captain Marvel situation, and people can stick wads of wax in their ears and pretend that that didn't happen, but it's already documented. Many people made videos about it and the proof is still up there if you want to go look about all of the people who were copy and pasting positive reviews word for word from accounts that belong to people in all these other different countries that didn't even speak English. Anyway, I do go here though to look at the critic number because the critic number usually tells you a lot. And if the critics are giving it a 43%, that is increasingly rare. Rotten Tomatoes is like, well, people more so listen to the audience reviews now, which is why they did that whole thing with the audience reviews back then. They think we're stupid. On IMDb, it does even worse at a 1.9 out of 10. Even people trying to give the movie a positive review and claiming it had a good rating seem as though they're struggling to put the words together to say how good it was. I don't know what they were reshooting, but it felt like they made it worse. I'm guessing that Disney is going to count this as a loss, but I'm curious to see what they're going to come up with next, because if they keep going this route and all they have in terms of direction is to go downwards in terms of their production, Disney might not last that long. I hope they have other stuff out there that's better than this, but the bar is set so low with this movie, there's no place for them to go but up. So that's a good sign.
Snow White is set to be Disney's biggest opening weekend flop of all time.
A movie with sleepy opening weekend at the box office, pulling in only $43 million in the U.S., despite costing $250 million to make.